G'day Guardians, my name is Jaffa and this is my first ever player commentary. Today we're watching my solo 100k master level completion of the Proving Ground Nightfall with Titan. This is another video I posted yesterday, although I do use the exact same build. That was a more conservative run just to get the master completion. I took the lessons from that run, did a bit more testing, decided to make a more confident push for the actual 100k. I just decided to do this commentary because this is a brand new Nightfall, currently one of the most difficult ones available according to most of the community, and I wanted to talk through some of my decision making when tackling some of the encounters. First of all, my apologies for the audio quality. I'm not really in the business of voice recording, content creation and so forth. So for now this is just my cheap setup I use for in-game voice chat and so on. Because this is my first commentary, I'll give a short introduction of myself as a player and my history in Destiny. I began playing Destiny with the Warmount expansion, Destiny 2. I did not play Destiny 1. I don't really play shooters on a gamepad. I'm actually a Warlock main. I know all my videos are Titan, and I said in my Armstealer video, I made a joke about being a Titan main. Titan just, I only really have time to play one class per season, and Titan just happened to be the one I chose. Titan is also, I think, more interesting in terms of showcasing in-game pinnacle activities, because Titan doesn't really have some of the tools that the other classes have. Controverse hold for Warlock, Healing Rift and so on, and invisibility for Hunters. You know, almost every video you watch of people soloing in-game pinnacle activities uses one of those two builds. Titan is very underrepresented, and for good reason. It is a lot more difficult, but you'll see in this run there are some things you can do with Titan that you can't do with other classes, and it's not going to do everything for you. I'm probably not going to take this into Grandmaster, but you can get away with some shit with Titan that you can't with other classes. But anyway, we'll get to that when we come to it. Yeah, primarily I'm a solo PvE player. I play the occasional Crucible when it's something I need in particular, but I don't enjoy PvP in this particular game at all. You know, and the less said about the better. I enjoy raids, but only play them a few times each. Sometimes play with friends, sometimes play with LFG. For the most part, I just play my own game. Anyway, all this is to say that I'm not the most hardcore player. I'm pretty average, really. I think intermediate or so. But I enjoy the mechanics of the game, and I find it an interesting challenge to play some of the pinnacle in-game activities designed for a fight team, but as a solo player. Personally, I find it quite satisfying to see my growth from season to season as I managed to do activities that at one point or another I thought were beyond my ability. You know, you can't go in and remember doing the shadow throwing for the first time. It took us like 2 hours or so. I had no idea what I was doing. And that was, you know, a few months after it came out, and you know, go back to my few weeks ago, I managed to solo it in 30 minutes. You know, just practicing and learning the game, and you just get better and better. You know, you challenge yourself, you get better. So anyway, I started this channel mainly as a personal record of my achievements, some failures. You know, you can see this run compared to my previous run where it's just master completion and I got 60k score or so. A lot of improvements I made, and I hope to see optimistically more improvements in the future. Anyway, onto the commentary itself, and let's just explain the build I use. First of all, we'll look at the modifiers. So we have to make our build in response to the modifiers. Scorched Earth, throw more grenades. Not a big deal. For the way we're playing this run, it's a bit annoying. If you're playing a passive class like Warlock and you're trying to stay back and keeping your healing rift and chucking controversial grenades at things, it's probably a pain in the ass. Titan, we're a lot more mobile, a lot more in your face. We can use these to heal from cover. I don't think I use that very often in this run, but you know, it's not too bad. Sometimes we would stop with champions, anti-barrier barrier champions. Unstoppable champions, probably the easiest ones to deal with in the game, because they don't regenerate health. They're a bit obnoxious when they charge at you, but if you position correctly, it's really helpful to single them out away from the pack and take them out one by one. Attrition. Attrition normally would be quite a negative modifier, and it is really. But the way we set our build up with a lot of healing and a lot of defensiveness, attrition can come in handy for getting that regeneration, because it regenerates you through damage. I think there are a couple of times, I don't recall actually, but in theory there are times where you're close in, you pick up one of these wells of light, you can get healing even when taking damage, and that's bonus on top of the other healing that we're already doing just from my build. Match game, we are using a sword. Swords, if you don't know, deal damage to health through shields, on top of doing damage to shields themselves. We have Void and Solar covered. We don't have any Arc covered. There's only one or two Arc enemies. They're mages, and you just hit them with a sword, take care of them just as easy as they would be any other element. Ignovin's Challenge. I don't know how to pronounce that name exactly. Ignovan. Splash damage is increased. I don't know if this one is used in any other Nightfalls. This one is not too much of a problem. You got to be careful with knockbacks, but because we're using a sword, we're using concussive dampener, passive guard. I'll go through it in more detail when you look at the build. This is not a problem for us. There are definitely much worse modifiers to have. Anyway, take a look at that and just look at our build. A lot of what we have here is designed around defensiveness, survivability. Given that, it means we can actually play a lot more aggressive. Subclass. Top talent tree Sentinel. Key things to take note of: Ward of Dawn, a bubble shield. That's going to come in handy for a bit of damage bonus on the boss, and survivability in some kind of risky situations. Most of the other nodes on this talent tree don't come into effect in this run. There are a couple of times where I melee to get health from dogs charging at us, but much of this other stuff is not that important. Grenade, personal preference, whatever you want to use. Here's Void Wall, get a bit more AoE. Towering Barricade. Rally Barricade is a meme since they got rid of auto reloading, so Towering Barricade it is. And Jump is your personal preference. I still use Catapult Lift because I still have the habit of what was it called? Titan Skating. I'm not going to get too into detail. You can look up Titan Skating if you don't know what it is, but Titan Skating used to be an old macro you could use to constantly gain momentum with your jump. The old macro that used to work for that is still really good for speed. It's not just crazy amounts of momentum adding on top of momentum that it used to be. Nightwatch we use for anti-barrier. Not much to say about Nightwatch. One of the best kinetic scout rifles in the game currently. Last edition. Need this for Unstoppable. Also need this for Void. There are a couple of Void enemies, the Scions and the Interceptors. this is really handy for killing them. Lament. What can you say about Lament? One of the best, if not the best exotics in the game right now. Even with the sword damage nerf to swords. This in combination with Stronghold exotic gauntlets gives us a lot of healing, a lot of survivability. Lets us get away with a lot of cheeky shit that you wouldn't be able to get into otherwise. Short summary of Lament. It pierces anti-barrier champions. It heals on damage. And you can combo it by holding Q and doing a light attack into a heavy attack. You can do that for a massive burst damage. So it really kind of does a lot in one. Maybe a little bit too much. It may get nerfed one day. We're gonna enjoy it while it lasts. Again, it's a stronghold. Stronghold, if you don't know what it does, when you block, shots blocked immediately after getting heal you. This is really good because we're in tradition. We can't heal by ourselves for a while. This comes in handy for tap. You just tap, block, and you can get a lot of healing. Maximizes guard stat and equip swords. This also means you can spam guard as much as you can. If you didn't have these, along with not being able to heal, you would run out of guard quickly. What happens then is you get staggered. You're out in the open. You're completely vulnerable, and you can just die. So like I said, combination of Stronghold and Lament. A bit more defensiveness with the subclasses, Ward Dawn and so on. Very defensive subclass, very defensive build, and very survivable and aggressive build at the same time. Mods, I'm not going to go into huge detail. Basically, I'm just using Protective Light, and everything else is trying to get me to get Protective Light as much as possible, given the build we're using. Once we get to red health, I believe it's about 50% damage reduction when we're charged with light. So I have stacks on stacks to give us a bit more stacks of charge with light when we do get them. Shield break charge, you get charged with light when you break shields. Supercharged, have more stacks of charge with light. Normally you get 2. With this mod alone you get up to a maximum of 4. Charge harvester, also really handy. You just, after a certain number of kills, doesn't matter what you're doing, what gun you're using, how you're playing, you will get charged with light somehow. Anyway, that's the build as it is. Let's get on to watching the run itself. Alright, here we go. First thing, skip all these enemies at the front. The Vex and the Cabal continue to attack each other. Most of them stay towards the bottom. Not much of a threat. Even this turret, there's a turret to the side. I've done this maybe a dozen times. Not a huge amount of times. Never been attacked by that turret to the right, so I ignore that one too. Because we have passive guard on, just realised I forgot to actually mention that in my build preview, but passive guard, when you have your sword equipped and you're close by an enemy, I don't know exactly what the range is, but you're close enough, you get a massive damage reduction, so you can take a lot of hits you wouldn't normally otherwise. Already straight 53 seconds in, we killed 2 champions because of things like passive guard. I haven't really used the stronghold healing much, but you can really get away with some risky business here. But none of that's taken care of. The champions are triggered. There's one more unstoppable champion coming out the top. I don't know if he's spawned already yet. The champions are triggered by, in game dev terms, they're called trigger volumes, where if you pass an invisible barrier, it triggers an event happen. Some champion, depending what node you're playing, what encounter you're up to, champions will spawn after a certain amount of kills, or either hitting a certain point in the level. And in this case, these first few champions, they'll spawn once you push up far enough into the strike here. So just chipping away at some of these red bars with the pulse rifle. Pulse rifle does a bit more DPS than the scout rifle, but the scout rifle is useful for utility. I don't know when it was that they changed anti-barrier, but anti-barrier didn't used to go through those phalanx shields. It does now. I believe it was only the start of this season, in fact. But I'm just cycling between pulse rifle and scout rifle, depending on the situation. If I'm close enough, I want to use pulse rifle as much as possible because it's a bit more DPS. But otherwise, scout rifle has, as far as I know, has infinite range. But at a certain point, you start losing a bit of the target acquisition. You start missing headshots a lot more at a certain range. You'll notice here with this all-in phalanx, it's a little bit more difficult hitting these headshots, just because you don't have that target acquisition, which is a hidden like bullet magnetism, where bullets kind of curve towards the enemy, even though you're not perfectly on target. It's one of those things that makes Destiny as a shooter, a lot of people find it quite satisfying. Is really a lot of what that is you're hitting a lot more headshots that you wouldn't normally otherwise in other games. There's not much to say about this early section, but what happened here is calculated use of stronghold, where I know this champion, this ultra enemy, mini boss, whatever it is. I don't know what class it is exactly. When I took out that unstoppable champion, I know that he can melt. This other character can melt with the minigun. So I didn't commit straight away to finishing him off. I may have to go back and watch it. I may do it again with another champion at some other point. Don't commit fully. Once you do your combo, block, you get a bit of healing, and then went and go finish him off. I think I'll do basically the same thing with the next unstoppable champion that I spawned in a moment now. But the key thing is to I do some silly looking stuff here, and in some cases I do get away with luck, but it is calculated here. See, I'll use my stronghold to heal before finishing off. Abuse stronghold as much as possible to get the healing when you block. I do that a lot. You'll see that a lot in the tank section. The tank section is the vehicle bay. Infamous already at this point for being one of the most difficult encounters in any of the Nightfalls in this game so far. But you'll see, if you've already watched my last run, you can see me just typical Titan stuff. W mouse 1, kill a lot of enemies. I do even more of that in this run. Some of it is luck. I did do a number of I didn't do this one straight away after my last run, and did a few more tries. Did a bit more testing. There is a bit of luck involved. I don't want to like give anyone an impression that, you know, I'm some kind of god and I've got everything figured out. There is a lot of luck there is some luck involved, but there is a lot of calculated tactic to it as well at the same time. What you saw there with, if you noticed, I didn't use. I only damaged the major using the damage combo of the sword. There's a lot to say about Lament, about what the best combo is for the right situation. I think it's really interesting about Lament is it's not just a weapon you just. It's not brainless. Has a bit of technique to it and a bit of variety to it, which I think is really interesting. It's not exactly like a fighting game or even a action RPG like Dark Souls or whatever. Very technical gameplay there, but there's a bit more technique to it than using most of the other swords in the game. I only use the damage combo because I'm trying to save ammo economy at the same time. I'm using the sword a lot, but at the same time I'm trying to be calculated with how much ammo I use, and because I need it for a lot of situations to kill what I need to and keep me alive. Yeah, it's some very silly things. something that's a little frustrating with Lament, though, at the same time. As good as it is, you see me jump in the air there. If you're in the air at all, doing damage, and this applies to any sword at all as well. If you're in the air at all, doing damage, your combos do a lot less damage than they would otherwise. And there are a few occasions where I either get booped up into the air, or out in the starting area, the ground is very uneven. If you're even slightly too high or too low to an enemy that you're trying to combo, it'll just automatically put you in the air. And yeah, the problem with that is you just do a lot less damage. And it can be a bit unpredictable at times, but I think I do an okay run of it in this run. So my objective there, when I went to rush the enemies, you see in a lot of other runs people doing this with Warlock or Hunter. They'll stay back and they try to chip away closest enemy they have. But with Lament and with Stronghold, we can take out some of these dangerous targets. That last major, there are different versions that will spawn. It's random in this strike. There's that one with the Arc Shield, there's one with the Void Shield, and there's one with the Solar Shield. But it doesn't matter which one it is. They will try to push up to this middle bridge. And it can be a bit of a thorn in your side. Once you take those out, did I take out one? I can't remember if in this run or not I did. Beeline for the champion, but I also try to take out one of those mages as well. But once you do that, the rest of this first half of the vehicle bay is really pretty trivial, even with the Interceptor Silence, which you may not even have noticed at this point, because it's really about taking out those key targets first and playing to good positioning. You see a lot of people try to push up really close to that blast shield that's kind of on my left front. It's not always the best idea. I know it's kind of tempting to like cover your angles as much as possible to avoid getting flanked. But at this stage, with the targets that I've taken out, I'm not really in a huge danger of getting flanked. So I kind of stay a bit further away. The reason for that is these interceptor pilots, if you're too close, can actually shoot your feet through that blast shield. And I know some people have difficulty taking out these interceptors with just a primary like this. People recommend using a rocket or even Anarchy. You stick it on the interceptor vehicle. You can shoot them from the front. It is a bit inconsistent. The trick to it is that the interceptor vehicle, its hitbox is, I don't know if it's a hitbox, if it's designed this way, or if it's a bit wonky or what. The interceptor vehicle actually blocks damage from the front until you get just enough angle. You'll notice that that ground level of it, there's the slope at the front and the slope at the back. Generally they kind of push towards the front. That means their vehicle is sloped up towards you and it's very difficult to get an angle on them. But if you can get them into the middle section or into the back part of the slope where the vehicle is angled down, you can get just enough height above them and to shoot them with your primary just as pretty trivially. This one at the back though is a bit difficult. To get the right angle means I have to go up into this high ground. This high ground, people who probably did this strike the first time thought, oh yeah, that's pretty tempting, good spot. I don't know if it happens in this run or not. Yeah, there they are. These guys will always spawn. They'll always spawn infinitely after a certain amount of time you standing up here. And that's just like a, counter. This whole encounter section is designed around keeping people on their toes, trying to limit cover as much as possible. And so the way we've designed this build is really primarily around this tank section in particular, this vehicle-based section. The trick to it is to really, there are key targets you want to take out. There's a lot of survivability that comes with this build. And you also want to keep mobile. You don't really have much choice but to keep mobile. As a Titan, you don't have invisibility. You don't have Healing Rift. So you just keep mobile. The thing is that a lot of these enemies, they shoot projectiles, right? They have really good aim. The higher difficulty you go, master level, the aim actually gets better. The AI is a bit underrated in this game. There's a lot of subtlety and a lot of details that goes into the programming with this AI. The Bungie does a lot better than almost any other first-person shooter. I know it's easier to meme on them when they do some stupid shit, a lot of wonky shit. A lot of them are teleporting at the moment recently. I won't go into detail about the teleporting stuff. Bungie has explained what that is and they're working on it. It is what it is. I don't think it's been a big issue for this run, for this Nightfall. I don't know if I recorded any teleporting at all in this run. Maybe in some other runs, but anyway. If you saw me running around just a moment ago, as tanky as this build is, as aggressive as this build is, the biggest weakness I have is dealing with the phalanxes. There's one I think you'll see in a moment here. The phalanx enemies are kind of obnoxious to deal with this build because they block your sword, and if they charge at you and get their melee off at you, if it doesn't kill you straight away, a lot of people will probably have experience with this. There's a strange physics to it where if it hits you at the right angle, it'll knock you straight across the map into the wall. And because we have the modifier where we take extra damage from knockback, that could very easily kill me. So I W mouse one into these barrier champions, but the phalanxes I try to keep my distance from. One at a time I can deal with, but two of them charging at me, I try to keep my range and take them out with a scout rifle. Yeah, there they are. Yeah, it's funny about that, like the way this build is. If this were a Taken Nightfall and we had the unstoppable Taken phalanxes, I don't know, what would that be? Lake of Shadows? Lake of Shadows for the most part, one of the easiest strikes to do. But for this particular build, a bit obnoxious to deal with swords, because yeah, their shields just block unless you get the right angle. This major, I don't think I saw. I believe he spawns every time during the tank section. He's handy for keeping alive, because I just have to shoot him with the last position. And I can get charged with like 2 stacks for free. But I don't think I noticed him at all in this particular run. But usually I try to kill him last anyway. At this point I don't realize I have not enough bullets to stagger him. When you saw and I got knocked across the room, that was very dangerous. I got really lucky there. I could have died. If you see these banners, these flags, whatever they are, that hanging from the roof, the bottom section of them, the belt buckle looking thing, is the collision object. And I came narrowly close to flying right into one of those, and that could have ended my run right there. And I got lucky and I just missed it, just because of the extra knockback damage. If you hit that wall, you die instantly, but I got lucky in this run. Anyway, the hardest encounter, maybe up to, maybe debatable, I don't know. For this build, for this run, master level, yeah, like I said, I probably won't take this into Grandmaster, but I think it does pretty good in that section. Now this section up into the boss is not really a lot to say, just playing Destiny, chip away at the enemies, try to kite these unstoppable champions out one by one. Like there, I'm thinking like, what, is he going to stay there? And I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, he is going to come towards me. I don't want to, you can get away with some cheeky stuff, like I said, but if I don't have to take the risk, then I'm not going to take them out one by one. In the previous run, I tried to play a lot more conservative. The previous run I uploaded, where I just did a master completion, didn't get 100k. Try to play a lot more conservative. Try to be a lot more cautious about preserving ammo. Preserving ammo is very important to get to this boss fight, because the boss has a huge amount of health, which is not unusual. There are a lot of Nightfalls, especially recently, where the bosses have a lot of health. But the difficulty about this one in particular is there's not a lot of enemies that spawn. Okay, you think about cameo from Lord Shocks. I don't really, I'm just not really in the habit of content creation or whatever. I should probably turn off those Steam notifications of my friends playing games. But anyway, yeah. The thing about this boss, you think of, okay, what are the other bosses with huge health bars we have at the moment? Navota from the, what was the Cosmo Strike that they added? I've already forgotten the name. The Disgraced. Voda, ridiculous amount of health for a Hive Witch, but there's a ridiculous amount of enemies that spawn in the room, so there's a lot of chance of you to get ammo drops. The Glassway, a lot of enemies. Devil's Lair, the boss is one of the weakest bosses of all the Nightfalls, and there's still a lot of enemies that spawn. Very little enemies spawn in this boss room, very little chance to get ammo. I've done runs where I don't get a single heavy ammo drop the whole run. I got quite lucky in this one. I think I got one mini brick of heavy and one normal brick of heavy. Maybe a third one, I don't remember exactly. We'll see when we get to it. But that's a bounty of riches for this boss fight to get that amount of ammo. It comes really handy because the other weapons I just have are just primaries. A super itself doesn't do a lot of damage. So definitely got lucky in that case, but there was still a bit of plinking away with primaries. Something is a little bit unappreciated with primary weapons as compared to special weapons is special weapons may be a little bit more damage. So take for example if I use the sniper rifle. Sniper rifle can also cover anti-barrier champions. Snipers, unless you use maybe like Cloud Strike, the legendary one, the exotic ones like Cloud Strike and why am I blanking on their name? The Honed Edge one. Izanagi's Burden. Why did I blank my name? I love that weapon. I use it a lot. Izanagi's Burden. Unless you're using those type of weapons, the max damage output of special weapons is really quite low. I can link a spreadsheet that compares DPS outputs and max damage outputs of just about every weapon archetype and exotic in the game. Primary weapons, at least these two, Scout Rifle, Lightweight Scout Rifle and Adaptive Pulse Rifle, have pretty good max damage outputs. So but may not have the best DPS, but have better ammo economy than if I used a sniper rifle or so. And Lament is really, for the most part, all we really need for actual damage, DPS. So at almost any point here, I can use my super. If anyone's not noticed, when you initiate the rite of proving or whatever it is, when you activate the boss fight, your super regenerates instantly to max. I usually save my super for this final section just before the elevator, because there's a bit of a choke point. We have to push in with an anti-barrier, and there are a lot of orange bar enemies that like to just camp in there with them. It can be a bit tedious to chip away at them one by one. So all you have to do is stun lock the champion, and then use your super and take out the rest of the enemies pretty quickly. I definitely got lucky with this run with some of the heavy armor drops. You can compare it even to my last video. I had a lot less heavy ammo drops. Don't quote me on this. I don't know if this is 100% true, but it feels like if you only use a primary and a heavy, you get a lot more heavy drops than you would otherwise. I don't know if that's true. That will require a lot more testing and the random nature of it is. But my intuition is that you get a lot more heavy ammo drops than you would if say, I used a special, a primary and a heavy, or two specials even. So these guys will just, I don't know if there's any way to get them to kite them out. But yeah, this is a bit difficult. This is where I need to use my super. I don't need to, I suppose, but in the interest of time, I'll get my super back shortly anyway. The funny thing about the super is I could probably do a lot of this same stuff just with the Lament. But may as well use it while we can, because I still want to save heavy ammo. This elevator you can actually trigger to go up. I need to go back to get a brick of heavy ammo. You actually trigger it to go up. If I was speedrunning it, I'm not really interested in speedrunning, but it's something you can do. You can trigger it to go up. It'll take us a moment to go up, and it'll teleport you to the top. You won't be in any danger. But I didn't quite hit it enough on this run. But I won't need it because this is approximately the score that I ended up with, 150,000 or so. Even though the run goes on for some time longer. Getting a heavy ammo drop in this boss room can be the difference between, you know, a 12-minute solo run or a 20-minute solo run of just the boss fight itself. People are probably not going to like this idea, but probably not going to like the idea of making this even harder than it already is. I don't think this boss fight is particularly difficult. Once you learn the subtleties of it, I don't think it's terribly difficult. Not as difficult as the vehicle base, certainly. Yeah, people are probably not going to like this idea, but I would prefer it if they added some more, you know, red bar enemies in here to give us a bit more ammo while we deal with this boss. So when I'm damaging the boss, I mentioned this earlier, but I'm not going for DPS, I'm going for ammo economy. The best ammo economy is to do 5 light swings and heavy with the charged combo. I think I only do 4 here because I still want the backup of the guard energy to block and get my health back in emergency, so I only do 4. Doing 5 gets slightly better ammo economy, but the survivability is really more important than a tiny bit more damage. Four combos would have taken them down to the next phase, but yeah, I only did 3 because I'm trying to save ammo. I don't know at this point that I end up getting a couple bricks that make it easy for me. So at this point, these fireballs that they spit out has tracking to it, but they're not quite as crazy as, say, like the Axion bolts of the Taken phalanxes. The tracking has a lot of inertia to it, and obviously the hitboxes are huge, so you can get them to collide with cover fairly easily. But the thing about this is they do a bit of extra damage because of that modifier with the additional splash damage. But because we're using things like concussive dampener, if you're close to an enemy, I'm proccing passive guard to get that extra damage reduction, just stacking reductions on top of reductions to keep us alive. So at this point, I'm just trying to chip them down to the next segment of their health bar. You see that it's in 3 segments, 3 phases. At this point, the boss is not a huge danger. This oven that you can go through, if you just fly through it, there's no danger at all. I don't know exactly the timing, but if you stay in there too long, it isn't, I don't know if it's supposed to be an oven or not, but effectively an oven, it'll cook you and damage you inside. It's just, this entire strike is obviously designed with the idea that they want to not get you too safe in cover at all. Keep you mobile. So make sure I'm saving ammo for these champions. There's a particular timing you want to get to taking out these champions while not getting nuked by these fireballs, even though I can still technically survive a full barrage. If I'm at near full health and near an enemy where I got passive guard blocked, I can survive basically a whole barrage, which you can see on my last video I did. Completely, I didn't deserve it. I probably deserved to die. I wasn't really thinking at that point, but you can avoid, if you're careful about the timing, you can avoid the barrage of meatballs and take out the champions as you need to. In the next phase, when the boss has got his dome on top of the podium, you'll see I'll move all the way to the other side of the map. There's as much distance as possible for 2 reasons. One, it makes it difficult for them to track over such a long distance. And secondly, there's less of them. The interval between them, because the boss only shoots them when they're hit their targets or all exploded. So the interval between them is a lot longer and gives you a bit more window of safety. Just trying to stay safe, take it easy, kill out these red bars one at a time. And now at this point, I haven't noticed at this point yet. There is one mini brick on the other side where that boss is right now. Nevertheless, this section of the phase, I end up having to use, I don't have enough heavy ammo to warrant using my sword. I need to save my sword for the champions and for survivability, so I don't use it on the boss just yet. Yeah, unfortunately this is fairly boring part of the Nightfall at the moment. Just plinking away with primary. Like I said, primary weapons, depending on which one you use, which archetype you're using, generally have fairly good ammo economy in terms of max damage output. So I end up plinking away at this. You'll see here, this is called, what I'm doing is head glitching the boss. This is something that's common technique in almost any first-person shooter you'll play. Because technically you're shooting, I mean, if you've got your iron sights up into your face anyway, your character is shooting basically from their head level. So what you can do is you can position yourself in cover where only your head is exposed. But the way enemies are designed in this game is, obviously they're using projectiles like this boss, which have massive hitboxes, so they collide with terrain before they hit you. Or even in the case of more precise enemy weapons, I don't believe there's any concept of them being able to do critical hit damage onto you. So they'll aim at your center of mass. So what that means is you can do some kind of abusive stuff here where, yeah, it's called head glitching, where you expose just enough of your body, just your head out, where you can shoot them, but they can't shoot you. It's not really a glitch, it's more of a, just a, you know, almost, you'll see this in pretty much any first-person shooter, really. Especially ones with a lot of projectile attacks from their enemies. Chipping away. I forgot I had a grenade. You can do a bit of more damage with a grenade. Here is kind of I realised is a good spot to get close to shoot him, to get cover. But it is a little bit slower because he keeps jumping around and hiding behind the cover. But anyway, I get to a point where I realise I'm actually quite low in primary ammo. And I don't want to risk using too much primary ammo because I still need it to deal with the next wave of enemies that spawn. At some point, almost any moment here, I end up finishing this phase with a sword. Figure I can afford just one combo. And turns out I did because I believe I get another heavy ammo drop with this next wave of enemies. Love the music in this boss fight. Music in this, I mean, it doesn't need to be said really. Destiny music is pretty great, but very, very evocative. If you really want to play seriously, you probably turn the music off because it is a bit distracting and it can hide some audio cues that you need for enemies that may be flanking you. But for the sake of, you know, recording and showing a video, I think it's better to have the music on. Music can be handy in sometimes as well to sometimes the music will change subtly depending on which phase of the fight you're in. Sometimes there is some information that can be gleaned from that, maybe not a whole lot. Okay, so at this point, 2 unstoppable champions will spawn again. And I want to kite them back to where the entrance is to give as much space between myself and the boss. This is a glaring mistake I made at the last time where I was basically on autopilot mode. I wasn't thinking really. I almost died trying to take out one of these barrier champions, these unstoppable champions, while I took a full barrage of these homing meatballs. But I learned from my mistakes, like I said. We learn from your mistakes, challenge yourself to get better, and get a 100k plus Nightfall score. Not a lot of dramas. I don't know how this comes across as, does this look easy, does this look hard, or whatever. Well, there's a bit of practice, a lot of trial and error that went into this to get to where I am. This is another danger point. If I wasn't using a sword, if I wasn't using passive guard, I could get, you know, yeeted into the wall and died instantly. This build is designed to be safest up close, and you can use the sword to cancel your momentum so you don't fly into a wall and die instantly. I say that from experience because before I tried with the Lament, I tried with a heavy wall mine cell build with what's the machine gun? The Seraph Saw machine gun as my heavy to take out ads. To take out ads as quickly as possible, hopefully get a wall mine cell. But I realised that wasn't really the right strategy. And in those sort of cases, it made it very difficult to deactivate those domes. Now here it's pretty smooth sailing. We've got a heavy ammo pickup, got my super, no more enemies will spawn at all. There is a bit of wonkiness. It's not so bad in this run, but in other runs. Using a sword right on the edge of the water dawn bubble, you're not supposed to do damage to enemies outside it while you're inside, and that makes sense for firearms, but not for a sword. So it is kind of a bit wonky sometimes to tell, are you inside it, are you outside, are they inside, are they outside, to get, you know, on the right level to actually damage them. It wasn't quite bad in that run, but in other runs I wasted a lot of ammo hitting at nothing, because it doesn't connect on the other side of the water dawn bubble. Just one more combo and that's it. Anyway, pretty surprised at myself, really. Maybe some people this is not that impressive, but saw a challenge, did some testing, learnt a lot from my failures, and managed to succeed at something. Anyway, thank you for watching. Take care.